Okay, the next thing that we're going to talk about are known as IsBes. What is an IsBe? Okay, well, in my last talk, I said that the Buddhists say that something of us here in this life moves to the next incarnation of you in a different human lifetime, in a different human body, but something from this lifetime will go into my next lifetime, according to the Buddhist. So, we're going to call that an IsBe, because we learned this word IsBe in the past 6 months on YouTube, and it's life, a living thing, an IsBe. It is and it bees, and you are an IsBe. Your dog is an IsBe, a fish is an IsBe. The ceiling, you wouldn't think, is an IsBe. Joe? Because I'm giving you, what we think of the living things. And you wouldn't think of the ceiling as a living thing. But the ceiling is alive, because you're going to say, no, that's a dead gyprock. No, it's not. Because that's what we call it in everyday 3D life. But if we want to be precise, and given all we know, all mankind knows about the nature of our reality, the universe is alive. And if the universe is alive, then everything in it must be alive, because everything is made from the universe, and the universe is alive. So something alive, how can you make something dead out of something alive? You're going to say, well, cut off your hand and I've made something that was alive dead. Well, everybody's puzzled over this one. If my hand's cut off, is my cut off hand dead? Well, you sew it on right away, you can save it. But, if you wait a couple of days, then, you would expect that, it's just going to be eaten, rot away. Does the meat get some residual life in it? Well, we know fresh meat from, rotten meat. No, everybody off track? Because we still think that the universe allows dead things within it. Meat, the rotten meat isn't dead. You're going to look at me. I know, but we're trying to get to a bigger picture. I don't know. I should never have used you like that. I can't help you out, because that's what humans think about. How do we know the universe is alive? How do we know the universe is alive? Well, if the universe is only partly alive and partly dead, well, we're in the universe and we're alive. Are we the living things and the universe itself is dead? Most of the time when I was younger, I thought of, empty space as dead. was talk about the air in this room, we would say, well, the air is dead. So is it brainwashing that we believe? Well, I don't know. What reason would we have to believe the air is alive? And this is where we get a hang up on trying to figure out. How are we going to probe this information? Okay, let's go with this one. You drink a glass of water. I'm having a can of Pepsi. That water enters my system and all the other things that I drink, and that water is in my cells, in my body. When the water's in my cells, in my body, is the water alive? And then when I pee it out, does it become dead? People are going to say, well, technically the water, even in your cells, is the medium for everything that's going on. Are the water molecules then, they're not considered alive, they're dead things, dead molecules inside your cells. And the things that are living in your cells are... what exactly is a living thing then? The protein. The protein's alive when it's good fresh meat. And then when it rots, the protein breaks down and it's no longer alive. Or you could cook the protein and that makes it dead. But if you eat that protein in the form of a hamburger, your body will take that protein and incorporate it into the body and make it alive again. Because it's just amino acids. Are amino acids living or dead? Well, somebody's going to say, well, it's like manufacturing things. Proteins are manufactured goods. In the cell, they're manufactured. So they're manufactured goods, and once they're manufactured, they're not living. In a plant, you might make those proteins into a plant cell wall, and the cell wall is made out of plant material, woody material, and we consider, the wood part of a tree to be dead, and only the green part of the tree, under the bark, to be the living part of the tree. So then the thing that makes proteins in the cell is the living thing. Trying to remember what exactly makes proteins in the cell. Well, let's go the other way. So from the DNA, you have all the information, and is the DNA alive or not? Because it's a database of information, code. It's the code. Is the code living, or is it like, it's just code. It's A's and T's and C's and G's when you learn in biology. So is the code alive or not? Somebody could say, well, it doesn't have to be alive. I mean, this is code that I wrote down here on my paper. The code is called English. No one would say that that code is alive. Okay, so the DNA might not be alive, but the thing that reads the DNA, is that alive? It's like the RNAs, the transfer RNAs, messenger RNAs. Is that what the living part of the cell is? And just that RNA is very, very close chemically to DNA. So if the DNA is dead, then why is the RNA alive? Because it's making copies of the information from the DNA into another format to go to the place where, I guess, where proteins are manufactured. What have you got in your body? You got water, lots of water, and then you've got, I don't know, the cells. What's living in a red blood cell? Well, something in the cell knows, like, if there's too much, they called it a vacuole, and like cellular garbage goes in there, and then they just, push the stuff out of the cell. Something seems to have an intelligence there. At what point does it become alive? You having a hard time with this? I know, but when I see fresh meat, it looks like fresh meat at the store. But, that meat is never going to come back and be a deer or antelope again. That's, it's fresh meat, but, that, is it living meat? They call it raw meat. You mean you want it, if you're going to eat meat, it's got to be, fresh and raw, cooked, or sushi, I don't know. I don't know, I'm coming up against a dead end. I mean, you can set up a factory, computerize it, and you could get the factory to run by itself and produce stuff. Is the factory alive that produces the stuff? No. Are the computers alive? No. So something dead is making something, because something that we consider alive, a human mind, came up with the idea of making that factory that makes stuff without any human input. This is very hard talking through this one. It's just very difficult. Would it be better if I could remember my, biology from a million years ago? Well, other than the names of, what it was, the organelle that makes proteins in the cell. I just say that all the intelligence is in that DNA, in the nucleus. How do you know that you're different than that computer-operated factory that you call dead? Because you're sentient, you can respond to new stimuluses, and those computers only deal with, this is the inputs to make the product, and those are the outputs, and this is the billings, and, whatever. And we can do so many things as living beings. I don't know, because it's an enormous difference between that factory and the computers that make all that high-tech stuff. And you call it dead. But a single-celled organism in river water, an amoeba, is considered alive. But there's been many computer programmers that have designed things that emulate single-celled organisms. They're not live, they're, simulated alive on your screen watching simulated fish swim, for example. Is it a hard question? It is called the hard question of consciousness. How do you get consciousness out of dead? And that's what people have been looking at, The siren goes off to say this. So, where do you go from the hard question of consciousness? All kinds of people have done all kinds of research. And what did they conclude? Do you ever expect a bunch of humans to ever come to the same conclusion on the same question? You're going to say, well, science would. No, it doesn't. You're sadly misled if you think science has only one scientific theory that they're working on, that every scientist believes in every theory that's supposed to be even common knowledge. But, the way that I want you to go is to go the opposite way, and, the consciousness itself comes before anything that we consider physical material in the day-to-day world. And, the example I always give is, if you're going to build a house, first thing you do is you go and you find the design of the house, the blueprints that you want, make all your changes to the blueprints, and then you sign off to the contractor who builds it for you, and then the house is there. But the idea in consciousness that you wanted this house this way was there in your mind first, before it was built. And that is why I always want to say that consciousness always comes before a physicality. And then you can extend it out that whatever is material in this universe must have been in mind before it manifested as what we call physical universe, by the same logic that I just gave you with the house. So, behind all the physical manifestations here, whether we think they're living or dead, is mind. And it must be enormous in order to make, all the stars in this galaxy, in this universe. And then people talk about the multiverse and all these other things that extend it. What I've given you is that consciousness comes as the root, ground level of our reality. Mind, non-physical mind, comes before anything that we consider physical. And mind we consider alive, sentient, able to think and converse with other people. So, that's the conclusion. Does it make sense? If you have any questions, put them in the comments.